Hello, guys. Welcome back to another exciting episode on the show Control or Be Controlled, a podcast designed to help you start thinking differently and take control of your life. And I remain your host, Darlington. Today's guest is a licensed attorney, legal commentator, and content creator who has built a platform making complex legal issues and high profile trials easy to understand. But beyond the courtroom, she's passionate about something just as important: personal growth. What makes her story unique is that she originally went to law school as a self development experiment, discovering along the way that the greatest lessons weren't just about the law, but about resilience, confidence, critical thinking, and becoming the best version of herself. Today, she combines legal analysis with mindset coaching, helping people navigate both legal issues and life's everyday challenges. Our guest for today is Dina Ovsepian. I hope I got your name correctly.
Very close. Ovsepian. But the Dina is
Okay,
correct.
Dina Ovsepian, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
All right, Dina, I hope you enjoyed that introduction.
I did.
Is there something you would like to add to it?
I think you covered it pretty well. I'm always interested in the perception that how people interpret essentially my intro, but you covered it very well.
Okay, so I have some questions here for you, and I would like us to get into them.
Okay.
Okay, so you have said that you originally went to law school as a self development experiment. I mean, who does that? So, what inspired that decision, and how did that decision change your life?
Law school was never something that was completely off the table. I think it was always in the back of my head. But the reason why I decided to go, I suppose, for such an unconventional purpose was because of my best friend. He had started law school about 3 years earlier than me. And I watched his journey as he developed, through his first year, through his second year, and then through his third year. And I saw the changes that were taking place within him very quickly. And I remember, because he went to law school, we live in Los Angeles, but he had gone to law school in San Francisco. And I remember visiting him after his first semester, and he just had a completely different presence about him. And this is somebody, mind you, I know him very, very well. I've known him for many, many years. And I was just awestruck by his presence, his confidence, the way that he was carrying himself. And I just thought to myself, I want that. And I attributed whatever it was, these changes that I was seeing in him, to this new curricula, this new adventure that he had embarked on, law school essentially. And I decided that I was going to go and get myself accepted to law school and see how it would impact me as an individual.
So, how then did it impact you as an individual?
I think that it impacted my sense of confidence. It impacted my sense of self-worth. It definitely, one thing I will say that it definitely changed very much is the value of my time, how much I value my time, and which in turn affects what I say yes to, what I say no to, how I treat myself, and everything stems from that. It also turned me into a much more logical and methodical thinker. I think it took me out of my emotions a bit and it put me more in my logical mind. And I think it's funny because, a lot of these self-development programs, a lot of these, advice is based essentially on developing yourself, self-development will tell you that it's better to sort of, go deeper into your feelings and, and just take that angle. And while I don't disagree with that, I definitely think there's value in that. I think that there's definitely a benefit of sort of slowing everything down and looking at everything methodically. I think people can often make much more grounded and better decisions for themselves when they do that. And that's an ability I attribute directly to law school.
Wow. So, by your answer now, you think people can just look at someone that they would like to like model their life after and decide to start doing what they did?
Can you repeat that question? I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
So, from your answer, do you think people can can just look at someone that they admire so much, maybe someone's development that they admire, and decide to do what the person is doing?
Yes, I do. I think that it can definitely be a model. I think it could be a framework. I mean, one of the things that I preach very, very heavily is that you need to have self-awareness, because self-awareness really is the foundation of everything, right? So if you know yourself, you know how to work with yourself, which is a very, very big deal. A lot of people lack that knowledge, and what happens is they try a bunch of different things and they're not able to understand why they're not able to follow through or why it's not working for them. When the answer really lies in, you need to learn yourself first and then work with yourself. So for example, I could look at somebody that I really admire and I could say, I love what they've achieved. I want to be like them. And I can look at the roadmap of what they did, and then I could adapt it to myself, if that makes sense. So I could use their kind of map as a general framework to get to where I want to be, if that makes sense.
So, yeah, if the person you were looking up to didn't go to law school to develop how he got developed and did something different, would you have done that as well?
That's a really good question, and I think the answer really lies in what that thing would have been, right? So, when I initially answered my first question that you asked me, I said law school was always something that was on the table. It was never something that was completely out of my mind. Like, I will never do this. It's something that I always felt would go with my general set of talents, and it's something that I overall thought I would enjoy. But I didn't think that I would actively pursue it, But when I made that correlation, I'm like, oh, wow, like this is actually, really benefiting him. Like it could have an actual benefit past just the profession, which is something I wasn't sure I wanted to do. That's when I decided maybe I should take the leap, because the time is going to pass anyway. I don't know if it had been something that is completely out of left field that I would have done it. You know what I mean? So for example, if it was like some kind of a musical apprenticeship and I have literally zero musical talent, unfortunately, I probably wouldn't have done that. But what I would have done is I would have looked at it and said, I like XYZ, like look at all these wonderful things I'm seeing and I really want that for myself. How can I get that for myself? And that's where we really come back to that lesson that you need to know yourself. You need to know yourself enough to not follow blindly, and you need to know yourself enough to be able to adapt scenarios, be able to adapt routines, and goalpost to yourself versus just blindly following what somebody else did. In this particular case, as I said, law school was never something that was fully off the table, so it just made sense for me. I hope that answers the question. I think I kind of went all over the place with that one.
Yeah, sure. That answers the question. So, I think no one has ever asked you that, right?
What did you say? Sorry.
I said, I think no one has ever asked you that, like, if you would have done something different, like, just if the person did something different, if you would have done that as well.
Yeah, I mean, as I said, it really depends on what that
No,
other thing would have been.
then I said, I think no one has ever asked you that.
Oh, nobody has ever asked me that. That's actually a very good question. as I was answering it, I really had to think about it too. So actually, that's an incredible question. I like that question a lot. And you would be the
Okay.
first and probably the only.
Okay. Beyond legal knowledge, what are the biggest life lessons that law school taught you?
Um, well, so the ability, getting into like, first of all, the ability to really step into my logical mind and think things through very methodically was very helpful to me. Somebody who, you know, I wouldn't say that I was more emotional than I was logical, but somebody that definitely leaned a little bit more into my emotions prior to actually, studying and practicing law. That's really helped me. It's helped me create distance between things that trigger me and my response to them, which in turn has helped me make better decisions, right? So, because I'm making it from sort of a neutral state or a calmer state, um, and I've thought it through, I'm able to make actually life affirming decisions versus just reacting to something and then, dealing with the repercussions of that down the line. So I would say that's the biggest thing. The other thing is just the value of my own time. I think, in law it's interesting because we're literally, we work on a billable hour. So our time literally has a certain level of value. And I say that because, by analogy, it's like I realize that, especially given, my schedule's very tight, it could get really, really busy. You start being very discerning with the way you spend your time and your energy. Very discerning. So you don't say yes to commitments that you don't actually want to do. Um, you do not want to be around individuals that drain your energy because this is all taking away from that pool of um, time and effort and energy that you can be putting into other things. So in the profession, you're kind of forced to do that. And then by analogy, if you look at your life, you're like, wow, my life would be so much better if I was discerning about how and with whom I spent my time. So that's definitely a lesson that's derived from that. That's been very, very beneficial for my life.
Wonderful. So you break down high profile court case on social media. Personally, for me, I haven't come across your socials, but I love those type of videos. Like, I love those type of videos, honestly. So why do you think so many people misunderstand the legal system?
Well, this is an interesting question. Here's why. It's a very basic reason, okay? Because I think that when people look at the law and like these legal court cases, they're looking at it very much from the standpoint of what is moral, what is correct, right? In their opinion, what is moral, what is correct, and what the right thing to happen is, okay? But the law functions on a um, set, school of rules, of statute, of different. It's the metric is different. Like the measurement is very different. So if I can, for example, bring up the Diddy trial, right? So obviously you could look at this trial, which was last year, as I'm sure you know. You can look at it and say, well, this person's a horrible guy. He's done XYZ. He's terrible. Lock him up for life. Um, you know, and maybe that's a fair assessment, right? But the thing is, if you're looking at it from a legal standpoint, it's like, well, what is he on the stand for, right? Can they prove this against this person? Is there enough evidence in order to say, okay, this person should be in jail for this, right? And if there isn't, then there isn't. And even if it might outrage the general public by saying, well, this is horrible and he deserves it, right? Let's say you still cannot put somebody in jail if they're fundamentally on the stand for something for which there is no evidence that they did, right? So perhaps it should have been, that he was on the stand for different crimes, let's say, right? In which case, maybe there would have been more grounds to put him in jail for a longer time. You know what I mean? But here, it's like when you're looking at the actual evidence and what they're trying to prove, you're seeing that there is a misalignment. So, for example, how he was sentenced was, legally speaking, the correct sentence, right? morally speaking, for general public, maybe it was not the correct result for a lot of people, right? But the thing is, there was a misalignment. I think the public has a perception that there's a trial against you and you're basically being tried for like everything, like your entire life. You know what I mean? But it doesn't really work that way. It's there's like a set of parameters that, parameters is the wrong word, but there's there's things that need to be proven and evidence that needs to show certain elements, right? And the functions are very different. You know what I mean? So, I don't think that generally speaking, people understand that, or even when they do, I think it's a very difficult concept to wrap your mind around.
Wow. Dina, thank you. So, how tell us how learning to think like a lawyer improved your everyday decision making, and how can it improve other people decision making, even for people who never plan to practice law? Is that even
I would,
possible?
I do think it's possible. I think it's definitely possible, and I think the greatest gift you can give yourself is the gift of distance and time. Okay. So I really think for most people, as I said, I think something happens or they receive some news or whatever, and it's an automatic trigger for them. And their immediate instinct is to respond, right? Right away. They need to solve it right away because there's this false sense of urgency that's created, and they feel they have to just give an automatic response. You know what I mean? I think the greatest gift that anybody can give themselves is to create distance between a trigger and a response. Okay. So something happens, you're triggered, and you give yourself space and time, literally space and time before you respond. Because I guarantee you, your response is going to be different if you give yourself that space and time versus if you react and respond automatically. That is incredibly life-changing. It's a very powerful skill to develop. And it's not easy to develop. But fundamentally, I think this is the one thing that will make the absolute biggest difference. And it also, when you start giving yourself this, right? So it's kind of like a domino effect. It's like you give yourself distance, space, and time to respond to something that has triggered you. In turn, you are responding in a way that is more life-affirming for you, hopefully, which is in turn making you feel more capable and more confident, and the cycle repeats, you know? So confidence is a byproduct of decisions that you make on a daily basis. A lot of these practices lead you to become more confident and lead you to have a stronger sense of self-worth. But it's in the little things that you do on a daily basis that these are built. And what I'm describing, I think, for me, it has been the single most powerful skill that I have committed myself to developing internally.
So, what are those daily habits, those little things that we can do as well? What are those things?
The daily habits, I would say one really very good daily practice is give yourself small things during the day that are easy to accomplish, but that you accomplish on a daily basis. Because what happens when you do that is you're creating the framework for accomplishment, capability, and winning, right? So a lot of the times you hear, well, you have to have a winner's mindset. You have to internally feel like you've won, that you're capable, that you're accomplished. But listen, if you never really follow through on something, if you never really accomplish, something, so if you're just not following through, basically, right? If you have no framework for that, what that feels like in your mind, in your body, then you're drawing from an empty well, right? But what happens is if you take little steps and accomplish little things on a daily basis, you're almost creating the foundation of what that feels like. So if someone's saying, hey, you have this larger goal that you need to accomplish, you have to act and feel as if you've already won, you've already achieved this, right? And you have this history of small wins, right? If you're accomplishing something on a daily basis, right? You look back, you look into this pool of evidence essentially that's full, right? And you can draw back to that feeling. And it could be something very small. I mean, for me, I walk 10,000 steps a day. Very easy to accomplish. It literally takes me about, I would say, an hour and 45 minutes to do 10,000 steps. So it's an hour walk plus just your daily activities, and every single day that gets accomplished, right? So every single day I'm finishing something, even if it's just that, makes you feel stronger as a person.
Okay, so talking about boundaries, Dina, setting boundaries is something that many people struggle with. Most people say they have boundaries, but when it's time for them to keep the boundaries, they tend to they're not able to keep the boundaries. So tell us what practicing law taught you about establishing healthy boundaries.
Well, law is all about holding your position, right? So when you have a particular client or when you have a particular case, sometimes you're not working with the best set of facts even, right? But it's all about, developing and holding that position. And also on just the base level, it's an intimidating profession. So you have to kind of like you have to know how to hold your ground. So as an attorney, you're constantly being put into situations that most people would find quite uncomfortable. And you are having to navigate that and sort of hold your standards and boundaries each day. Like you cannot cower under that pressure and become weak, because then it will sort of reveal you will be easier to pick on. Correct. So I think when you practice that each day in a small way, you start developing that more and more internally, right? So if you are not, let's say, a lawyer, or if you don't have like a similar profession where you're kind of put into these situations on a daily basis, I think the best way is to start small, right? Um, it's the idea of, as I was describing earlier, it's the idea of small wins, creating this framework of evidence that, hey, I can do this, right? So start by saying, let's say, no to one thing that you actually don't want to do, for example, whatever that may be for you, right? So let's say if you're stretched too thin, you're very busy, you cannot do something, but you're just so used to saying yes because you don't want to disappoint a person, start with that little no. Just start with that and see how that feels. And then slowly develop it, one step at a time.
Okay. One step at a time. Okay. So, talking about social media, they have a lot of opinions that people present as facts on social media. And so, how can people become better critical thinkers and avoid misinformation in this age of too much information?
How can people become better critical thinkers? I mean, I would say just okay. So I want to say just definitely make sure that you're listening to multiple sources that are vetted and that are good. So on a very preliminary level, there is that, right? So, but then the other one is when you're going into something, it's a frame of mind with which you are actually going into listening to a particular opinion. Okay. And I can draw this analogy to literally the practice of law. So, and here's too why I say like some of these lessons are so transferable, right? Because when you are initially analyzing a case, you have to, obviously you have a client and your client has a certain position and there's a certain outcome that they want. But the thing is, as the case progresses, you're going to get evidence from the other side, right? And that evidence is either going to strengthen your client's position or it's going to weaken your client's position. But in order for you to develop a strategy that is strong for your own client, you have to look at all of the evidence coming in a neutral state, right? You cannot look at something that is objectively negative for your client and pretend it doesn't exist. You know what I mean? You can't ignore it. So when you are initially analyzing a case, even though you have a position you have to hold, you look at all of the evidence with an open mind, right? Because when you look at it with an open mind, or you have the idea is the intention is you have to look at it with an open mind. Because when you're looking at it with an open mind, you will know also will be able to strategize how to actually work with the facts that are not what you necessarily want, right? It's the same thing when you're listening to like TikTok, Instagram, whatever, however it is you consume your news. Listen to something, but listen to it openly, right? Like that way it reduces the bias that you're feeling. Or at least you're making an effort to reduce the bias that you're feeling and you can look at things more objectively.
Okay, Dina, thank you so much. I hope my listeners can become critical thinkers in this age of so much information. So share with us, for people like us who have not been to law school, share with us one legal misconception that we have that you wish we understood better.
One legal misconception. So this goes back to, also the fact that, like when you're, law is not, the legal system is not a perfect system, but it's a system that we have, right? So oftentimes when, you are trying to fight a particular fight, you need to put into context what it is that you're wanting out of that versus, just full on, I want justice, I want this, I want that. Sometimes it's more, law is more narrow, I think, than what most people perceive. It's more narrow than what most people perceive in terms of the individual problems that is solved through each case, if that makes sense.
Yeah, sure. That makes sense, Dina. So if someone feels stuck, overwhelmed, or lacking confidence, what practical steps would you recommend to help them move forward?
If they're stuck and they're lacking confidence, I would say go back to basics. So, first step is, develop a framework whereby you understand what you want. Okay. So, literally put pen to paper and write down, what is it that you are seeking, right? And if you don't know the exact thing, then you could literally write how you want to feel like every day when you wake up, right? And as you progress through your day. And then after you do that, right, you have to observe yourself to understand what you're doing in your day, right? What that's going to do is it's going to reveal the disconnect between how you behave and what you say you want. Once you know that, right, you can start developing a strategy by which you can bridge that gap. But you need to look at yourself first. So anybody that's feeling not confident, anybody that's feeling stuck, the very base advice I have is look at yourself first. Look at what it is that you say you want. How is it that you actually behave and think? Look at that very uncomfortable disconnect between who you are, and where you want to be. Because if you do not look at that, there is no way you can bridge that gap. So start there.
Okay, thank you, Dina. So, looking back, do you think your greatest education came from studying law or from studying yourself?
I think that anyone's greatest education in this life is studying themselves. Like, I mean, what do you mean? Like, when you say studying yourself, you mean literally studying me as a person?
Yes.
Yes. I think that that's the greatest education anybody can have. Um, knowing who you are, I think, is the greatest gift that you can possibly give yourself. Um, and it's available to everybody. It's available to absolutely everybody. I mean, just to put it into context, like there could be people that have, incredible educations, be exposed to the great, I don't know, amazing things in this world. But because they have no framework, they have no understanding of like who they are, what they want, they don't really know themselves, they will not reap the full value and the benefit of the experience, the education, whatever it is that they are receiving. And I have seen plenty of that. throughout my life in various contexts with other people and also in law school. So until you know yourself, everything else is, I mean, obviously, go to school, get an education, if that's what you want, for sure. But what I'm saying is that foundation of knowing yourself, I think, is the greatest gift you can possibly give yourself. And I think everything, including your professional success, is better when you know yourself.
Okay. So, Dina, is there a question you wish I would have asked you that I have not asked you? Maybe something you would like to share that I am yet to ask you?
I think your questions were actually very insightful. I really enjoyed this conversation, and you certainly did ask me some questions that I've never been asked before. At this time, like, no, in all honesty, I think that I think that this was a very productive interview, and I feel my mind certainly is expanded way in having to respond to these questions. So thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much, and I really appreciate you for coming. And I hope I've been able to give you the avenue to share with my audience and with me what you want to share with us.
Yes, you certainly did. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Okay, so for those who would like to connect with you and learn more about what you do, how can they do that?
I will tell you right now. I have my TikTok is at Dina underscore Michaela. So that's at Dina underscore Mikaela. And you can also follow me on YouTube. And my YouTube is at Dina Michaela. And that's just one word altogether. So DinaMikaela.
Okay, Dina, thank you so much. Thank you for having such a fascinating conversation with us. It's a great reminder that some of life's most valuable lessons come from unexpected places, and that the skills we develop through challenge, critical thinking, resilience, confidence, and self-awareness can shape every area of our lives. Thank you so much, and thanks to my audience as well for listening. You guys are the reason why we are able to do this and why we are able to have amazing guests on the show. I love you all so much, and make sure to check out Dana's work. And if this episode is speaking to you, share it with someone out there, and make sure to follow the show and leave us a review as well. Thank you all so much, and I will see you guys on the next episode. Until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and keep taking control of your life. Bye, guys. Thank you, Dina.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.